minutes talking about that item. When they complete their presentation, if they have one, then we will go ahead and do our deliberations and hopefully come to our recommendations. During that time, I'm going to ask Sarah to mute everybody who is not a part of the board. You're welcome to stay and watch. We may have questions for you, but sometimes it gets a little confusing when people just start piping up and throwing things out there. We'll certainly call on people as we need to. So with that, why don't we go ahead and get started? The first item of business is our roll call. So starting with that, Mary, are you present?
Present.
Present. And Will, are you present?
I am present.
And Don Robertson is present. We're also expecting David Breams and Sarah Schroditz to join us. We are 2 members short tonight and every night until we fill 2 vacancies. So for anybody that knows anybody, it'd be a great opportunity to participate. With that, we'll move to public comment. I don't see a whole lot of public here this evening, but if there's anybody I'm missing that wants to speak regarding an item that is not on the agenda, now would be a great time. If you want to speak regarding an item on the agenda, I would ask you to wait until that agenda item. Is there anybody that needs to speak about any item not on the agenda?
I don't see anybody in the participant list on that isn't with something on the agenda.
Outstanding. We are moving right along here into consent agenda. As Will and Mary, have you guys had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Yep.
Is there a motion for approval of the minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Excellent. Seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Outstanding. Look at that. We are clicking right through.
Cruising along.
Are there any changes to the agenda by any of the members, Will or Mary?
No.
Nope. Okay. Man, we are practically in the home stretch. Oh, wait. Now we have real items to deal with.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Sarah, you want to talk to us a little bit about the Bell Street Extension Project?
I am actually going to introduce Mike Walker, who, for those who may not know, is our Public Works Director. This is an item he requested to be on the agenda, and so I will let Mike introduce the details of this item.
Mr. Walker, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I want to thank Sarah and the board for letting me kind of slip this on the agenda on kind of short notice. This project is a top priority of the city councils, and it's a very complex project. There's a lot of moving parts to it, so it's taken a little longer than we expected. And in order to keep it moving along, we'd like to get some feedback from the Parks Board on a couple of options for compensatory mitigation using some open space property that was dedicated to the city as part of the Sandy Bluff 2 development. I'll bring that up on my screen here. Or your screen, or everyone's screen, I suppose.
Yeah, you should be able to share. Ivy and I did a dry run, and she can share my screen.
Okay. All right, here we go. So anyway, this is kind of an overview of the area and the city-owned property. That you see that there's 2 parcels. One identified as Sandy Bluff Park. Everybody's familiar with that. That's the developed park area. And then there's the open space parcel, and there's a couple of other parcels that are owned by developers, with some with development potential and some with limited or no development potential. So I went back through the dedication deed for the 2 properties owned by the city, and they didn't really make a distinction between the open space parcel and the park parcel. One was the park parcel was identified as the upland parcel, and the open space parcel was identified as the wetland parcel. The wetland parcel, the reason there's no park there, or the park isn't expanded into the open space parcel, is because a lot of it's not developable because of riparian setbacks, wetlands, and things of that nature. So anyway, that's kind of what the land that the city owns, and what we're looking at is using the open space parcel for compensatory mitigation on the roadway project. And we've got, I think Sarah shared these items with the board earlier, but this is kind of an overview of the road project. This is the pond, and this doesn't have parcel boundaries on it, they're just barely visible. But anyway, this is the open space parcel here. This is the whole distressed properties parcel, and this is 4J Land Company. This is zoned R2, and it is developable, but it just has no road access, so that's why it sits there in its present state. And then this is the west end of Bell Street here, Sandy High School. Here's the intersection of 362nd and Highway 26. And so the plan is to extend Bell Street east along this common property parcel through the Lundeen property, taking a big swing here, and then connecting up with 362nd, which will extend south to the intersection with Highway 26. The two stream crossings, there's one right here. This is the little intermittent stream that originates on the Sandy High School Nature Trail property, skirts around the south and west side of the high school. It will, we'll have to cross it with a structure for the extension of Bell Street, and then it meanders its way through the castle property onto the city open space parcel here, and into this, into this pond, and kind of not by design, out of the pond. Then this, it doesn't show up on this view, but the stream continues around, joins what we call the North Fork of Tickle Creek, somewhere up here near the BPA power lines. And then this is an intermittent, I'm sorry, this is a perennial stream. This is an intermittent stream / drainage channel. It picks up runoff off the highway, both south and north of Highway 26, runs through the Lundeen property. You can kind of see the drainage channel there. They have created a stock watering pond there by damming up this seasonal drainage. And then there's an outlet from this stock pond that we'll have to cross. Again, this is a pretty small stream. It's dry right now with the road. And then it continues in a channel, goes into another stock pond on an adjacent property. So the stream impacts are pretty minimal. These are small streams, and they're relatively simple to cross without impacting the stream itself, and a minimal amount of the riparian corridor associated with the stream. So we're trying to, we haven't done the final design to know the size of the structure. Ivy may have a little more background on that. So anyway, that's just kind of an overview. And I'd like to introduce Ivy Watson. She's an environmental scientist with Harper Hoff Peterson Regalis. They're the engineering consultants on this project. They're doing the roadway design, and Ivy as part of their team. And she has done all the wetland delineation on this project and the environmental resource work on it. So I'm going to just turn it over to Ivy, and she can explain kind of the mitigation opportunities that we see associated with this open space parcel.
And thanks everybody for the chance to talk to you about this project. Like Mike said, we're still working on the exact impacts that are going to be associated with the project, but there will be some wetland and some stream impacts that will require mitigation. So right now, based on my rough estimate, it's not going to be very much. It's going to be less than a 1/10 of an acre of impacts, or around a 1/10 of an acre of impacts. So that may change with the design, and we will be required to provide mitigation matching those impacts. The ratio of mitigation that the Oregon Department of State Lands requires varies depending on a number of things, especially what type of mitigation we provide. So depending on whether we're enhancing an existing resource or creating a new resource, the ratio of mitigation to impacts can vary from 1.2 to 1 to 3.6 to 1, which will come up again when I start talking about the different mitigation options. So just to give you an idea also of kind of the box that we're working in when we start designing mitigation, we have requirements to match the wetland and stream type. So we have to provide mitigation on a perennial stream, and the wetlands that we're impacting are shrub wetlands and forested wetlands. So we're looking to provide mitigation that enhances or creates shrub and forested wetlands and enhances or creates new stream habitat. We also have to match or replace the functions that are impacted at the impact site based on the functional assessment that's required by DSL. So that also can kind of constrain the design of the mitigation. So taking all that into consideration, Mike directed me to go check out that open space parcel south of the Bluff Park, Sandy Bluff Park, that we were just looking at. And I'm going to share my screen with you. You may have seen these exhibits before. I think that Mike was talking about sending them ahead, but so this is the parcel that Mike just showed you. And I just wanted to go over a little bit of what I found when myself and my colleague Kent, our other natural scientists, went out here to take a look. So this is the forested stream corridor that comes in. It looks like it has wetland along the sides of it. And it's all in pretty good shape through here from what I could see. Pretty limited opportunity for enhancement based on it already being in quite good condition. It comes into the pond here. And then we have this big open pond, which looks like it also receives stormwater from over here. And there's some old tile drains that come into the pond. So bunch of different water inputs going into this pond. Mike told me that this was originally created to irrigate the nursery that used to be out here. So there's an old head gate over here at this end of the pond that presumably was once used to drain the pond, but it didn't look to me like it had been used for a long time. Then down here where I have this little marker, there is a concrete and board structure that was probably used to control the level of the pond. You could add boards or take boards out depending on how deep you wanted the pond to get. And that has sort of failed. There's erosion around the edges of it. It looks like nobody has been actively using it to control the level of the pond for some time. And the pond now, when it fills up after a storm or in winter or whatever, it has created a path around this structure, and it flows kind of overland across this berm. There's some big corrugated plastic pipes that somebody at some point laid down here. So some of the water flows through the pipes and some of it just flows overland into a channel down here that I sort of have been calling the overflow channel, because it looks like it just sort of was probably created as a result of this pond overflow, and it's very, very eroded. I'll show you a picture of it in a minute, but it's just kind of a bare eroded channel without not what we would usually consider a healthy looking stream channel. It's in size, so it has really high steep banks with no vegetation on them and a bare bottom. And when I was out there, it was actually dry. So during my site visit, which was about a month ago, I think, there was water here coming into the pond. There was water in the stream down here, but this stretch was actually dry. So the stream itself, after it leaves the pond, goes subsurface for a little bit this time of year and then springs back up. And then there was another little branch that looked like it was subsurface seepage from the pond going into this channel, probably associated with the head gate. And so I have a couple of pictures to help you get a better idea. This is that concrete structure I was talking about. These are where the boards that used to be used to control the level are, the remnants of them. This is one of those corrugated plastic pipes that sometimes carry some of the flow, but it doesn't look like it carries all of the flow. We could see signs of overflow and erosion around that. You can kind of see the pond in the background. Here's one of the places where it has eroded the bank around the edge of the concrete structure and now just flows overland. Oops, I zoomed in instead of going to the next page. Let's see. So this is that stretch of channel I was talking about, which was dry when I was there, that accepts the water when the pond overflows in winter. And it's from a natural resources point of view, it's in pretty bad shape. It's not providing much habitat, and it's probably a pretty big source of erosion. I think that was all. Oh, and this is a picture of the tile drain outfall that over, I'm going to take you back to the overview picture really quick. Sorry. So that tile drain comes out over here where there's also a stormwater outfall pipe, and this area just has a lot of erosion associated with those outfalls. It looks like they get quite a bit of water coming out of them, and it just runs down the bank and erodes into the pond. Though the pond itself, when we were there, the water quality looked like it was very turbid. There was a lot of suspended sediment in the water, so it was kind of murky looking. There was some scum on the surface, so just visually, not without doing any tests, but it looked like the water quality in the pond wasn't great. It's all on these sides, it's exposed to the sun, so it's taking on solar gain, which eventually can, go back into the creek and degrade the water quality further in the creek. This area over here is a previously delineated wetland, an emergent wetland, which means that it's grasses and sedges and forbs, but not really shrubs and trees. So we looked at this area for some potential enhancement opportunities too. And there are some, but the problem for our project is that it's a mismatch because the wetland we're impacting is at the end of Bell Street there in the forest, and it's shrubs and trees. And this doesn't meet the requirement to match the type. So now I'm going to show you a couple of the options that we came up with for these areas to provide mitigation. And we just kind of wanted to get these in front of you to start getting your input on what kind of changes you would want to see with the pond, what kind of changes you definitely would not want to see with the pond, what kind of concerns or thoughts you might have. Just it's just sort of a way to open the discussion. There's a lot of different elements of the mitigation that could occur here, and we can kind of mix and match, and we'll need to tailor them as we narrow in on the impacts and exactly what functions we're addressing and that kind of stuff. So think of this as a conversation starter. So these are some really preliminary ideas. And also we'll need to look at it more closely in terms of the topography and before we can actually say exactly what the construction methods would be and that kind of thing. I'm sure you will kind of be wondering about. But so this, I'm just going to show you two options, although originally I had, I don't know, Mike, what it was like 4 or 5 different ones that I showed Mike, and he said, let's just narrow it down to a couple of samples and present those at the meeting. So you can thank Mike for saving you some time there. So this one is an idea where we would basically remove the pond entirely or drain the pond and convert it to wetland with a stream channel going through it. So ponds, I'm very aware that communities can be very attached to ponds, and I don't know if the neighbors here are attached to this pond or not, but from a natural resources point of view, when I see an inline pond on a stream, the first thing I think is we should take that pond off of the stream because it's creating all these water quality issues and it's harboring invasive species that might prey on our native fish and things like that. So this is kind of one of the first places my mind went, was get rid of the inline pond altogether. So the elements of this would be to cut down this outfall to a lower level, remove that concrete structure, create kind of a broad outfall with a low flow channel in it that connects to the existing channel. So, and then create a channel connection from here to here and partially fill the rest of the pond so that the stream runs from where the inlet is through this new channel to the outlet. And when I'm looking at it now, I realize we probably would want another channel connection from these outfalls down to here. But anyway, like I said, the details are still to be worked out once we start really narrowing in on approach. But the green area would be a partially filled with, that would hold some water in winter, but it would probably only be 1 to 3 feet. And then it would be planted with willows and other wetland plants that are adapted to that kind of conditions. And then we would have kind of like a stepped mini cascade down from here into the channel because the pond is quite a bit higher. And I think that's the main elements of that one. I'm going pretty fast, but I assume you guys will ask me questions later if this is confusing. So this is the enhancement stream, pond, and wetland enhancement option that leaves the pond more or less intact and just provides enhancement. On this one, the main elements are removing that concrete structure again, creating some scrub, shrub, forested wetland here. So the idea would be to create kind of a, take out that little restricted outfall that's creating a lot of erosion and right here and right here, and create a broader outlet so that the pond, when it fills up to a certain level, sort of broadly flows across through a wetland area and into this channel a little bit more naturally than it does now. And then in order to meet the acreage requirements that we have to meet for DSL, for our mitigation ratios, I added a bunch of other elements to this plan. And this is kind of where we could really get into mixing and matching, and maybe we could use some different ideas in this area. But there's some erosion, like I mentioned, at the outfall, and some similar stuff over here. So one element of this would be to fix those eroded areas, to plant trees just along the edge of the pond. I don't want to do trees all through here because it's actually a pretty nice, mostly native meadow back here. But if we put trees on the edge, then we could create some additional shade for the pond, which would be a water quality benefit and could count for wetland enhancement. And then I have some repair of the incised channel. I'm not sure exactly what that would look like yet. It might look like maybe cutting back the steep banks a little bit, or adding some grade control in that area that I showed you the picture of, where the channel is really bare. These polygons along the fringe of the pond here and here, I'm envisioning as a partial fill that creates some terraces, because right now the banks of the stream are the banks of the pond are very steep. So if we could create a terrace right about at the ordinary high water level, we would be able to plant trees and shrubs in these green areas and provide some additional shade and a variety of habitat that way. I think that would be a water quality benefit as well as a habitat enhancement. I'm just going to look at my notes really quick and make sure that I hit all of the main points.
I've got a bunch of questions when you're ready.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready for questions.
Could you go back a slide, please?
Yeah.
So what's the construction of the when you make it a stream again, or change it from a pond to a stream, kind of dotted heavy blue line. Yeah, exactly. How do you,
Yeah, what is constructing that look like?
yeah,
Yeah, so my idea, because this option would involve both cutting down this outlet to make the level of the pond lower and then filling in the deepest part of the pond to bring the bottom of the pond up. So in the process of filling, we would create a stream channel path through here, and then we would plant along it. So it would be a matter of grading, really. But my vision, I guess, as it were, for this one is that over time, this channel will probably move naturally through this area and kind of make its own path and meander and change within this larger depression. So it'd be sort of like putting in an initial suggestion for the stream, and then over the years, it would probably move around naturally through that area.
so no rock or anything, just whatever soft, whatever's materials native there.
Yeah, I think that we would probably need something. Right now, the stream comes out here and kind of the force of the water goes this way. So we would probably need something right here to direct it back this way. And that maybe could be like a piece of large woody debris, like a tree trunk, or it could be maybe a couple of boulders, or we could some kind of natural material that we could place here to redirect that force this way. And we might also want to bring in some coarse gravel or something like that to line the stream bed, but I'm not imagining like a big, riprap line channel or anything like that.
So it's changing it from a pond to a stream, but then it's still a pond in the winter. Is that correct?
So in the winter, it would be more like, I would say, a marsh, like a wetland that has some standing water in it, but like a willow, like over here. Are you familiar with this site at all?
I am. In fact, it's interesting. I never, connecting the dots from the stream behind the high school to here was.
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't put two and two together, but yeah, I'm familiar with the site.
So back in this area, there's willow thickets and spirea thickets and some other shrubs. And there's a stream that kind of goes through them. And from what it looked like, there were some depressions that hold water in winter of various depths. And I imagine the whole thing gets kind of soggy in winter, but it's very vegetated. So this is kind of more of what this would look like, after a few years once the trees get established.
Yeah, and I guess where I was going with the whole range of questions was it's not going to turn into usable space even with this.
Right. It wouldn't be recreational park space. I think at one point Mike mentioned the possibility of putting a trail or a boardwalk, or I don't know if that was a long-term or a short-term idea, but you might be able to put some kind of an access point in it at some point, just for wildlife viewing, wetland habitat viewing. There's potential for an interpretive sign or something like that, but it wouldn't be like a place where you would go and play.
And then last question is, does either option, and like you said, this is initial just kind of discussion, does either option have to like impact on migratory birds, or is this too small an area that you can consider?
So when you say migratory birds, that covers a lot of species to me.
Well,
So the pond as it is right now is probably attracts ducks and geese and that, like, waterfowl. So in this version, there would be less habitat for waterfowl, probably in the second version, this one where there's still the pond, but there's some additional wetland around the edges. I would say this one would be very attractive to migratory waterfowl. This one would be less attractive to migratory waterfowl. We're talking about migratory birds. We're also talking about songbirds and hawks and, all kinds of birds that migrate. So
I was thinking more waterfowl was where.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This one would probably be very beneficial to waterfowl, and the other one not so much. This,
I'm still kind of in much bigger area, but I'm still kind of disappointed with losing Roslyn Lake. We lost a lot of birds that way. So anyway,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
still in my memory. Anyway, cool. Thanks so much, Ivy. I appreciate it.
yeah, you're welcome.
Mary, do you have any questions?
I was thinking about the pollinators, how we could incorporate plants and stuff in there for the pollinators.
Yeah, that's a great point. I am a really big fan of all our wonderful flowering wetland shrubs. I have them growing all over in my backyard, partly because they attract a lot of native pollinators that I really like. And I would definitely be recommending those for the plantings on both options, Spirea, Pacific 9-bark, Pacific, or not Pacific dogwood, string dogwood, all of those shrubs, and then things like Vager's tick, that's a wetland flower. There's definitely a lot of great stuff we could do for pollinators in both of these plans, and I love that that's something you're thinking about.
Mary, anything else?
I'm just worried about marshland during this winter time on the other slide. But either or looks good to me.
Okay.
Is it mostly insects that you're thinking with?
I'm thinking of,
marshland?
well, it's far away enough where they're not gonna, be a nuisance or anything, I don't think. I would think more so in summer they would be more of a nuisance, the mosquitoes and such. But then if, we had the pond with frogs and stuff in it,
Yeah.
that would take care of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to predict what mosquitoes are going to do, for me at least, because I'm not a mosquito expert, but I imagine they're breeding in this pond already.
Yeah.
It's here year round. And then especially, well, actually both of these plans would provide better habitat for frogs, because they need the submerged stems to attach their egg sacs to.
Right.
So I would expect both of these to be good for frogs. And right now there's a lot of bullfrogs and non-native fish species in here that probably eat frogs. So I would say that this plan where we took the pond out altogether and converted it to wetland would probably be the best for frogs, for our native frogs. But yeah, I mean, I definitely, when you say marsh, and I probably shouldn't use the word marsh because I know people have a negative connotation with it, but it's definitely, the insects are always something to think about when you're near where people are living.
Yeah, well, I used to live by a marsh, so it was terrible.
Well, I got a couple questions, if I may. On option 2, would that create any regular flow through that pond at all? Keep the water moving?
So on this one, I was envisioning cutting down this outfall lower than it is right now, which means that the water would flow out of the pond for longer, into the spring than it does now. I don't know exactly right now when it drops below the outlet level, but it would keep water moving through it for longer, but at some point it would drop below the outlet level and just be a stagnant pond like it is now for some period during the summer.
Okay. Mike, the inflow off of the storm, is that solely off all the streets around the neighborhood, or is that coming from other sources?
Actually, the one at the northeast corner of the site, the stormwater from the development goes through those swales that you see in each of those cells in the park. And then even in a 25-year storm event, you only get a couple of inches of water in those cells, and you rarely see anything in there. It'll get a little wet in the winter. So that all the development runoff goes through that stormwater system, and then it does discharge when the water level gets high enough to the stream a little further downstream of this. I think Sarah I was trying to recall, Sarah, when I know we had the Clackamas River Watershed Council do like a riparian planting further downstream in this stream channel, kind of where the stormwater outfall is between there and the existing stream channel. But just as a quick answer to the question, there's another intermittent drainage to the north. And so when this development happened, they weren't obligated to treat or detain that. They were just obligated to pass that through their property. So there's kind of two stormwater systems, one that passes all the offsite water through the system, and one that takes the development generated water, treats it, and discharges it. So the stream that enters there from the northeast and where the drain tiles are, that is the off-channel water, and there's kind of a wetland on the north side of Olson Street, west of Jewelberry, and east of Jewelberry as well. So that's where that water is coming from.
So what I was getting to is trying to ask whether there was any pre-treatment of any of the stormwaters to get rid of all the road tars and gunks and things prior to it going into the pond. And
yeah, well, that water, since it's mostly a natural channel upstream, that provides some treatment, but the water from the development site goes through those swales that kind of run along the toe of the berm in each of those cells. You can kind of see there's, sedges and rushes and grasses in those swales. And, there's a lot of habitat in there. If you walk through this area in the winter, you can always hear little birds in there. That's where a lot of the frogs hang out, is in those swales in the winter, in the spring. Right.
Now, the pond itself has been there for a great many years.
Yeah, this was a container nursery. It was like 80 acres of it before it was a development. It was Isley Nursery, actually, is one of their sites as well. They had some in-ground stuff and some container stuff. And they use this for capture runoff and irrigate it. In fact, the city irrigates the park with some of the water out of this pond. There's a little pump house and a well in there. Oh. There's a submerged inlet in there. There's an agricultural water right associated with this. The city has never converted that to a municipal water right. Nancy was never too enthused about spending 10 or 12 grand in Parks Fund money to go through the water right conversion process. But that's something we should probably do at some point in the future.
I would say so. I kind of wish Nancy had spent that money a little bit. As far as a public, I can see, a lot of benefits from both of these actually, but from a public works standpoint, Mike, do you guys have a preference?
I would think that it would be easier to maintain, the enhanced stream channel, the enhanced stream side plantings. I think it would provide a better water quality benefit, and really not from a public works standpoint, just from a neighborhood standpoint. I think it would be less of a change for the neighborhood. Yeah. If there was still a pond there and it was just enhanced, and if the pond went away, I think that would take a lot more public involvement and outreach than the enhancement project would. Yeah, some people might say, well, gee, I like the pond, why did that go away? Yeah.
My guess is you probably have a couple of generations of people, old Sandy folk, that have been raised around it or raised their kids going down there to collect, tadpoles or one thing or another, and you might get a little bit of pushback on just making it go away. Not that doesn't preclude from, if it's the right thing to do, you need to do it, but I think that might be a little bit of a bitter pill for a few folks in town. Mike, what exactly are you looking for us for tonight? Are you looking for a motion? Are you looking for something that us definitively saying go with option 1 or 2, or are you looking for what you've received, which is just some questions and feedback?
I think we'd like to get some advice from the Parks Board. Ultimately this will be a decision the council has to make to, how to whether to use city property for this purpose. So, it's kind of nice to go through the process. Okay, we did this, we met with the Parks Board, this is the recommendation came out of the Parks Board. And then we'd have a more fully developed plan. At this point, I asked Ivy to develop options that would most likely fly with the regulatory agencies and, what she thought had the best chance of getting through that process. And these are the two. She mentioned, she had a lot more ideas that she could throw at this. You might want to say, well, the pollinator thing, we can emphasize that, or the try and provide some runoff treatment, additional runoff treatment, the bypass channel. Those are things we can do, but we didn't want to get into like 7 different options and, trying to design the thing tonight. I think we're just asking for, pond or stream, and then, then meet with the regulatory folks saying, this is what we're looking at. They bless this. Then we go back to the city council and say, this is the concept for the mitigation. I should point out one real quick thing too. It's important to note that, that one property that I showed you in the southwest corner is zoned R2. Probably when Bell Street goes through, they'll have road access in, and that will turn into something, multifamily development. And then the parcels to the west, where the road goes, that's not going to remain a pasture forever, and they'll probably want to pipe that intermittent drainage through there to the extent that they can. They'll have to provide mitigation as well if they do that. So, we should keep that in mind, that this is something that's owned by the public that will remain so, whereas some of this stuff downstream may be altered with development applications.
Okay. So I'm still not clear. Did you want a motion tonight or not?
Yeah, just some advice, just a motion saying that the Parks Board recommends option X, whichever one is the consensus or the a majority here.
Okay. Will or Mary, do you guys have strong feelings on the 1 or 2?
They both have good points. I mean, you keep, if you change one, the birds may not come, the migratory birds.
Right.
And that, I don't know if that's a normal stopping point for them, where they do, take part of the water. And then option 2 would be more for them.
Okay.
It's too bad that it couldn't be nice where someone could go and just walk there and sit there,
Well, it looks to me like you can nearly walk there and sit there. I believe that's a pathway just on the north side of it. Is that not correct, Sarah?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a bench right over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So it does offer some viewing opportunities, whether it's, Audubon or native
Right.
plants or birds or wildlife, such as it is. Will, do you have any feelings about 1 or 2?
I'm not being an environmental scientist kind of puts me at a disadvantage. But I mean, to me, the migratory birds are waterfowl, and then the other one seems to have a better. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ivy, but putting the stream through would probably be a better water quality than the one with all the water in the sun. So I'm kind of torn between that. And then aesthetically, I like option 2. So, but who doesn't? I mean, it's a pond. So, yeah, sorry, I'm not much help there.
That's okay. My personal preference also is option number 2. One, I think that it maintains the historic character of the site out there. It was a pond. It's been a pond. It's been a pond for many, many years, and people have known it as a pond. It has viewing opportunities that have probably been taken advantage of, let alone kids, chasing toads through there. And then, you know, its proximity to the park. While it's not maybe a formal part of our park, it certainly is an amenity to our park. So from my perspective, my personal preference, again, is option number 2. Do either of you wish to make a motion?
I can make a motion that we accept option 2.
I'll second.
You second that? Any further discussion? So the motion is that we accept or recommend option number 2. I think that we would also want to incorporate as much of the feedback into that as possible, Mike. So, and Ivy, so that you realize that that we still have a strong interest, not just in option 2, but kind of an enhanced option 2 that not only allows for the birds, but also pollinators to be able to more easily frequent the site down there. With that said, all those in favor of option 2 say aye.
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 And no opposed. So Mike, does that fit the bill for you tonight?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's just what we need to keep to go forward with this. And yeah, I've got some notes, and I'm sure I've got some notes too about the pollinators and some of the other things that we'd like to enhance it to. And you know, we're looking at trying to enhance water quality in Tickle Creek in many different ways, and you know, shade is one of them, and that's an easy thing to do. It's hard to shade this big of an area, but you know, at least in the stream channel itself, and you know, I think the broad terrace there that allows the water to flow will provide some water quality benefits rather than a point discharge to the channel. So we'll keep that in mind and go forward with this. And I want to thank everybody for their time tonight and taking a look at this proposal.
Great. Well, sounds like you're an emotionally
Thanks, Ivy.
satisfied customer. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Ivy.
Okay, next on our agenda, moving right along here, is Deer Meadows proposed development. Sarah, would you like to introduce the topic and then our guests?
Yeah,
Or-
so I'm gonna actually introduce Kelly O'Neill, who is our Development Services Director. And he will be reviewing this item on the agenda. I believe that Tracy Brown is here with the Deer Meadows proposal. And it looks like maybe Mac or Hunter is here as well with this particular agenda item. Kelly, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm actually having a little bit of spotty internet I never do. So my apologies, I cut out a little bit because my computer's been kind of a little funky the last 20 minutes. But yeah, I can kind of discuss these as much or as little as you want. But basically on the first agenda, there's 3 subdivisions before you tonight that we want feedback on. And on the first one, Deer Meadows, we actually want a recommendation. And then the other 2, I would prefer recommendation, but they're not to the point of going to hearings yet. So we don't officially need one. If you want to wait to give your official recommendation until a later date, that will also work. So on the first one, Deer Meadows subdivision, it's a 32 lot subdivision located at Highway 26 and where DeBarco Road terminates at the east end of town. So it's pretty much south of Vista Loop, west connection to the highway. And I'll bring up a map here. Hold on one second.
I have
Okay,
an aerial view too, if you need it, Kelly.
can you see my screen? Oh, wait a second. There we go. So what I did is I just took a few minutes and prepared a little map for you guys in Google Earth. And can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay. So what this shows is the city of Sandy. I don't have any labels on the streets or anything, but north is up on your screen. And you guys are all pretty familiar with Sandy, I'm sure. So you kind of know what we're looking at here. The tax lots for all the city and even out into the county land are all shown in black outline. And then you can see buildings, you can see the high school and all the ball fields there. And then I just wanted to show you that the green lots represent what is defined as parks, and the yellow lots are defined what is open space or trail corridors. So this is a map we've produced a couple years ago. Sarah, I don't know if you have this, but I can get it to you if you like.
I don't, I'd love to have it.
Yeah, so we can get this over to you. Hold on, it's not zooming in. And then the 3 red parcels on this map are the 3 different projects you're looking at tonight. So the first one here is Deer Meadows. As I said, it's Highway 26 and DeBarco Road. Can you see my cursor by any chance?
Yes.
Little hand. Okay, perfect. I didn't know if you could see that or not. So this is DeBarco Road, where my cursor is. This is Highway 26. This is where Vista Loop ties into Highway 26 when you're going eastbound out of town. This is the subject property. So currently we have one piece of property that the city owns, and it says in the staff report the size of this property. I think it's 1.3 acres. It's the Deer Point Park, which is this long linear green strip of land. Oh, 1.4? 1.4 acres. Thank you. And it's undeveloped. However, as you're all aware, the park's master plan has a conceptual design for this. The conceptual design includes additional parkland to the east of this green strip within the red area. So it's always, I've worked for the city of Sandy since 2011. And since at least that time, it's always been conceptually noted that when this red area develops, which is the Deer Meadows subdivision, that we would require parkland dedication to fulfill the full width requirement of Deer Point Park. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, you've been with the city a lot longer than I have, but part of the reason I believe Deer Point Park has not been built to date is because we were waiting on this additional dedication area and then develop it all at once.
That's what I've always
Is that
understood, Kelly.
Okay, so that's my understanding. There's no other real close parkland. As you'll notice, there's a couple of yellow areas, but these are all they are is pedestrian easements that the city owns. So they're not parkland by any means. So the staff recommendation, at least from talking to Sarah, and it would be my recommendation as well, consistent with the long-term visioning goals of the City Council and Parks Board, but also consistent with the Parks Master Plan that will be before the Planning Commission in 2 weeks, and then before City Council in September, is to require dedication of parkland on this red parcel. I don't know how much more you want me to go into this subject. I could go into it a lot more. The amount of land is dependent on the number of houses that are constructed, and also dependent on what type of housing units they are. So, if it's multifamily, that has a slightly lower demand on parkland acreage than single family homes do. So it really depends on how many single family homes and how many multifamily homes the developer constructs. And then that gives you your calculations for how much land we can require is dedicated. In this case, they do have about 3 acres, which is commercial. That 3 acres, they could potentially have part of that as apartments. But in that case, what I would probably recommend is just doing that as a fee in lieu, because we just don't know how many apartments. So it'd be very difficult to determine at this time. I just noticed, I think this other little piece of land here is also actually included. I think I messed up. I think it's actually this land as well.
Okay.
So I'll stop there. And if you guys have any other questions of me, you can ask them, or after the developer's representative speaks, then you can ask me any additional questions. But I don't want to go too in depth. You guys have a long meeting before you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Is there a developer or developer representative that would like to speak to this project?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Tracy, good to
Yes.
see you again.
Hi, yeah, Tracy Brown. Actually, I see a little bit of glare on my screen, but not sure what to do about that.
That's okay. We'll fight our way through it.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's kind of, I'll just try to center it right down the middle of my face here, but so yeah, I guess I had a kind of a prepared little statement here that I wanted to read for you all, and I think Kelly did a pretty good job of outlining. He didn't really go into all the details in his staff report, and some of those I'll touch on a little bit too. And I guess one thing You mentioned Kelly had to do with the planning commission in a couple of weeks. I wasn't sure about that. It was only my impression we're going to the planning commission in September, but anyway, you can think about that and correct me if
Kelly,
I'm
wait.
wrong.
Kelly, I think, was referring to the Parks Master Plan.
Oh, I see. Okay, I didn't understand that. Okay, thank you. So I don't know who was on the Parks Board. I know Don was back in 2020 when a previous application known as the Bull Run Terrace came before you. And at that time, we proposed to dedicate 1.4 acres of parkland. And there was also an offer to assist the city with improving this entire park. And that was the recommendation of the Parks Board at that time as well. This plan was based on a request to change the zoning and adjust the zoning designations on the property. And after that, after the Parks Board recommendation, it went to the Planning Commission, who reviewed this and recommended approval to the City Council. And the reason it needed to go to the City Council is because it was requesting a zone change. And ultimately, after the first reading was approved by the City Council, they ended up denying the zone change. And so the applicant's proposal to dedicate land and help build the park kind of went away with that denial. So the current Deer Meadows subdivision is a different application in that we're not requesting a zone change. And because of this, the application is now considered a needed housing application. And Kelly alluded to that in his staff report, and he cited an ORS statute in that regard. So what that essentially means is that this sort of application only can be subjected to clear and objective standards in the city code. And so standards that are subjective or documents not correctly incorporated, such as the current effective Parks Master Plan, cannot legally be applied to the request. And Kelly mentioned that in his staff report. I think the last paragraph talked about the legal problem that the city has with requiring parkland based on the Parks Master Plan not being properly incorporated. So without a change in the zoning and the ability to increase housing density, dedication of parkland is problematic to the economic viability of the project. And more importantly, the applicant's attorney has confidently informed the applicant that the city cannot legally require parkland dedication because the standards in that chapter 1786, parkland and open space, are not clear and objective. And so for these reasons, the applicant does not have the ability or legal obligation to dedicate parkland with this development. Although we are not waiving any legal arguments that might be expressed in the future by the applicant's attorney, the applicant is interested in working with the city to find a win-win solution if one can be found. So I guess in that spirit, I've been authorized by the applicant to offer the following: that they dedicate, there's a strip of land between it's called Street A and the existing park. In our proposal, we offered to dedicate that to the city. And we also are offering to enter into an agreement as we construct this subdivision to help build the park improvements on the city's property, similar to what was offered before. And that would be an agreement between the developer and with the city council to effectively, the developer would get SDC credits for doing that work. And it kind of makes sense if you have a large construction equipment out there doing a subdivision. It's fairly easy to come over and do park improvements and grading, things like that. So that's you know, I guess my statement at this point. And so with that, I don't know if you have any questions for me. That's kind of our position at this point.
Do you have a map that shows that parcel that you're talking about potentially dedicating to us?
I don't have it handy, unfortunately. I don't know if Kelly can bring that up, but
I'll try to bring it up.
I might
What I'm
have,
looking at in the packet, it shows a plat. It shows two streets. One appears to come off of DeBarco.
yeah, it's that street. So it's, I think it's Fawn Street. That then, yeah, so it's, yeah,
So you're talking about a little narrow strip.
yeah, it's a fairly narrow strip and fairly long along the west
Is it-
side of that
Is it
street.
gray
there.
there? Is it in the gray?
I think it is in the gray, yeah. It's, I think it's somewhere in the range of 13 to 15 feet wide and about 380 feet or so long. And the area wouldn't include where the stormwater detention pond is unless the city would like that also.
No. So, Will, do you have any comments or questions? I believe Will was with us during those meetings last year also.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I've got a lot of thoughts. Yeah, 5,700 square feet isn't a whole lot of land. It's not even enough to build a house on barely. So, yeah. And it's certainly not enough to visualize the Deer Point Park as it stands.
Yeah.
That's against.
Harry, do you have any comments?
I was just thinking the 1,500 square feet is like inside of a medium-sized house.
Yeah. Well, and it's not configured that way either. Like you
Yeah.
said, we have basically what I would refer to as a cigarette lot that we want to add a slip of paper next to. I guess from my perspective, I am extremely disappointed that we're having this conversation. I thought that, you know, as things progressed, that we had a nice workable plan. I think it's unfortunate that for whatever reasons, I'm sure that there were good reasons at the time that the decisions were made the way they were, that things just didn't work out in that regard. With that said, I would also like to comment that as one of my mentors used to tell me way back when I was first starting out in Parks and Rec, just because you have the legal right to do something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
Mm.
And that's kind of the way I'm looking at this in this case. My feeling is that when we spent a lot of time debating it and discussing this, that we had a wonderful relationship and an opportunity that seems to have gone away. I would like to see that opportunity come back. And if I were to endorse the plan before us tonight, I don't think there's any chance of that coming back. So with that, I would tell you that I believe that we got it right the first time. And I'm more inclined to say that I would want to stand pat on that original decision. The way I look at it is if that original decision cannot stand, then, you know, you do have the right to move forward with it as presented tonight. You'll still be obligated for the fees in lieu. You'll still be obligated for the systems development charges. So basically we're cutting our losses for both of our perspectives there and be able to move forward. But I do want to reiterate that I believe that the last plan that we had before us was a good plan and a good compromise and a good opportunity for everybody. And I'm sorry that didn't seem to work out. I guess from my perspective, well, I've already used that term a couple of times now. I guess what I would like to do as the chairperson is I would like to make a motion. And I believe I do have that capability to do that. And What was that?
I was gonna provide one piece of clarity just so you guys have a picture if you want it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Our attorney, the city's attorney who represents the Parks Board as well, has a difference of opinion from the applicant's attorney on this. I want to be very clear with everybody here. The city attorney agrees with the applicant's attorney that the parks master plan is not fully incorporated into the development code. The disagreement, though, is the city attorney, and Sarah was in a meeting with the city attorney, so I think she fully understands this as well. The city attorney's office believes that we can require dedication of parkland, but that we'll have a very hard time dictating where on the property it will go. So if the developer wants to be agreeable with the city and you decided to require parkland dedication, it might be challenging for the city to have it abutting Deer Point Park.
Sure.
The city, I just want to be very clear that the city attorney and the developer's attorney do not agree. So the developer's attorney thinks one way and the city's attorney thinks another way. The only way for that to be settled is to take this to court, which may or may not get there. But I just want to be very clear that what Tracy said is the opinion of the developer's attorney. That is not the opinion of the city's attorney.
Okay. So Kelly, let me ask, just to make sure I got this 100% right in my mind. Our attorney believes that we do have the ability to, when we're asking for property donation, to be able to specify where that property is, correct?
No. So
No.
our attorney's office believes, after closer reading of our code regulations in 1786 and comparing it to case law, that we have the ability to require parkland dedication per the calculations in 1786. Where we don't have the ability is to require where on the development site those are located. Okay. The only thing that they have to do is meet the minimum parkland dedication requirements of like no greater than 15% slope, and there's some other requirements within the criteria there, but he does agree with the applicant's attorney that if they push back, it'd be very hard to make it adjacent to the existing parkland area.
Right, we would be relying on the goodwill of the applicant.
Or we'd be relying on the city forcing the issue, saying it has to be located by Deer Point Park in an approval, and then the applicant would have to appeal that to the state of Oregon, or the city denying the application because of that. So it might get to a point where it's a legal kind of decision by higher courts to decide who's right, the applicant's attorney or our attorney.
Sure. Well, and that would give us certainly clarity moving forward in other discussions too. Will, any thoughts? Oh, Mary, any thoughts? Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sidewalk right now, so if it was a piece of land located somewhere different, we had to look at the plan again. And that's, I don't see adding that as coming anywhere close to the Deer Point vision. So if it meant, whatever 1.4 acres or whatever the factor is, I'm just throwing numbers out, I don't know, Kelly, somewhere else on the property, I mean, that would be, to me, would be more advantageous than having, this strip of land that's really not adding much. That's
right. Mary?
I don't know what to say, actually. I came in the middle of this one.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, where would they put the park besides that one little area? And I don't know.
Well, I don't know either.
Yeah.
I guess if I was to make a motion, which I said I would, my motion would be that we stick with our first recommendation, which would be to accept property and not fee in lieu, and hope that we have a chance of having some connectivity to that property. The neighborhood has been incredibly patient, from what I understand, over all the years of waiting for this park to be developed. It almost feels like we had the victory snatched out of our grasp at the last moment. Nobody's fault at all. I'm not placing blame on anybody on that one. It's just what happened. So I think we got it right the first time, and so I would like to make the motion that we stand with our original recommendation to accept property.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? I don't see any. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Well, thank you very much, Tracy. Thanks for coming out with us this evening. It's good seeing you.
Thank you.
I hope that I truly hope that something can work out for everybody's best interest, the developer and the city both.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and the, you know, the legal battle isn't a desirable outcome. I
No.
think you were right, Don, in your initial discussion that, you know, the original plan was a good plan. And for whatever reason, the council didn't like it. It was really at the 11th and a half hour that they had cold feet for whatever reason. And I don't know, understand why exactly, but.
I was not privy to the discussions. I didn't watch it on,
Yeah.
on the.
And, you know, staff had recommended approval and you all liked it, so it didn't go through. So
Oh,
here we are. Here
we'll
we
see.
are.
We'll see how this saga continues, shall we?
Exactly.
Okay. Best of
Okay.
luck, Dave and Hunter. Thank you very much for joining with
Yeah,
us.
actually, Hunter is, I think, Mac Even. Dave is
Yeah.
with Deer Meadows, and Hunter is Mac Even on the next subdivision on
Oh.
Bornstead.
Okay. Sorry, Hunter. Don't go away. Dave, I hope things work out to the best possible way for you and your organization.
Thanks, Don. Can I say something real quick?
Certainly.
And sorry, my video is not working at the moment. Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly, exactly how we feel as well, Don. I mean, it's extremely unfortunate. We felt that we had made some great progress and worked together to come up with a great plan the first time, and we were, you know, 9.9 of the way there, and things went sideways. And I think it was a result of some unfortunate confusion. We actually asked the city council, and we gave them opportunity to reconsider. They decided not to. So, you know, we're between a rock and a hard place when it comes to this property. We don't have a lot of options that will work. It's, you know, currently a overgrown blackberry patch, and we've invested a lot of time and money into our first plan that you know, really shouldn't have resulted how it did in our opinion. And we would have loved to have been able to provide the park, as you know, from the first go around. It just, it doesn't work economically without a zone change to increase our density. So it's very painful on our side as well to be put in this position. But it's where we're at, and we're going to have to figure out a way to get through it. And hopefully we don't end up just filling up the city's and my attorney's pockets in the process.
Well, hopefully cool heads will prevail, and we'll get the opportunity to make a little lemonade out of this. So I do have a lot of confidence in the council. I have a lot of confidence in their wisdom. I'm sure that whatever reason they had for making that decision was a good reason. But hopefully we'll be able to have a little bit more discussion around this and be able to take another crack at this one again too. So again, thank you very much for coming out, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Bornstead Views proposed development. Sarah.
I'm going to turn it over to Kelly again.
Okay, I don't have a lot on this one, and it's mainly because the application has been deemed incomplete, and we've asked the applicant to redesign some of the streets in the subdivision, which I'll just say is not a typical request. So the applicant's considering what we've asked, and I think they're determining what streets can or cannot be redesigned. So in saying that, as the staff report says, the number of lots that we've called out in here is based on an application proposal that we're asking them to modify, so that lot number could or could not change. It might stay the same. I'm just not sure. But what I will do is bring up a screen share here. So I'm assuming you can see this. So again, I just highlighted the property in red, and the same thing, green properties are parks, yellow properties are open space, wetlands, trails, or pedestrian easements. So as you can see, I think the recommendation from Sarah was a fee in lieu, and that's mainly because we already have 3 parks within pretty close proximity to this land. So even though we don't know what the final layout will be for this site yet, we definitely wanted to get some preliminary feedback and maybe even a recommendation from the Parks Board tonight on if you would rather see fee in lieu or parkland dedication. And that concludes my summary there.
Okay, and and Hunter or Tracy, are you representing the developer also?
I can answer questions, and I don't know if Mac is there as well.
I'm here. I'm trying to figure out my buttons here. Hello. How you doing?
Good to see you.
But yes, Tracy is my land use planner as well. So I'm glad you're here, Tracy. Yeah, we were proposing with this project to do a parks fee in lieu simply because of the fact that there's 2 established parks within close proximity to actually both different ends of the project. And there's, some significant open space and wetlands. So we just prefer to add to that fund to be able to maybe make some improvements to those parks that are already in the area and make it better for the community that's already there and the community that we hope to build in the future.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. Will, do you have any comments or questions of Hunter or Tracy? Will?
No, I did not.
Okay. Mary, do you have any comments or questions?
No, it's just her taking away my forest, that's all.
We're actually proposing to preserve quite a few of the trees, by the way.
Okay.
Nice. Glad to hear that.
I'm sorry, that's why we bought the house, was because of that. No, I don't have any.
Okay. Sarah, I see your little hand waving there.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify too that, I know you've read through the staff reports, but this development staff is also recommending fee in lieu.
Right.
So, and I think it was Will Rogers said land, they're not making any more of it. So I'm always inclined to want to be able to try and get some property when we have the opportunity. But I agree with Hunter on this one. I personally believe that when we took a look at the draft master plan that we've identified for this particular area, we are compared to other parts of the city, we're pretty park rich. And so I think that at this point in time, our best option would be to accept the fee in lieu and be able to move forward with that.
I have a question though.
Yes.
There's on my map, there is a blue area. What is that gonna be? Is that gonna be like multifamily or?
I don't have the plan in front of me.
Okay.
I can
No,
speak to it if you
there's
want.
only multifamily proposed. I believe the blue
It's a
area
storm-
was like the detention pond,
Oh, okay.
the stormwater detention pond. So I'm trying to remember which colors that Ray likes to use from all counts
Okay.
things, because I don't have the map in front of me because I'm on my computer. It's hard for me just to pull it up. But oh, and by the way, this is a little more about me. Is I'm a very low tech guy.
Uh-huh.
My name is Mac. Even Hunter is one of my sons. I believe he must have used my Zoom last time, and I don't know how to change the name.
Oh, no problem. I apologize, but say hi to
I
the sun.
apologize to you because it's been my girlfriend in the past. It's been one of my other sons. It's actually been Sarah, the gal who works for me in the past. So I have to ask them to do that every time. But I saw Kelly chuckling over there because he got our joke. But thank you very much.
Very good.
Sarah, could you pull that up again and just zoom in on it? It was kind of tiny.
Could you see that when I pulled it up? Because I
I-
couldn't tell if you could see it.
I could. It was just like a.
Okay.
If you could zoom in
Right.
a little, that'd be awesome.
I don't know if I can. There's just something kind of odd happening with my. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, that blue area is the pond. It's the
Okay.
storm detention facility.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
I have it blown up on mine. On my other computer, I have the staff report blown up, but it's really blurry for me to be able to read anything off of it.
Yeah. I think actually it looks like might have.
There you go.
There you
There
go.
we go.
Yeah, that didn't help at all.
I know. That's what happened is
It's-
it's too, you can't
Yeah, it doesn't have
really,
pixelation. We'll have Hunter fix
yeah.
it.
Way to go, Hunter. All righty. Is there any discussion amongst Will or Mary?
No,
Either of you guys want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the fee in lieu of.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Excellent. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not seeing any. All righty. Mac, thank you so much for your time this evening. Watch out for those two dudes on your wall behind you. They look kind of scary. Looking over your shoulder. And Tracy, thanks for hanging
All
out
right.
with us tonight. Are you going to be representing the
No,
next?
I'm going to sign off for the night. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Tracy.
well-
Yeah, Mac, if you go up in the top of your screen and look at those three little dots, there's a function that you can say rename.
Oh, okay.
So give it a shot.
I'll call you tomorrow, Tracy, and get my
We'll
letter.
talk to you later. All right. Thank you all.
All
Thank
right.
you, everybody.
Good night.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mac.
Have a
Good
great
night. Good night. Sandy Woods. Here we
All right.
go.
So we don't have, I don't think, anybody here tonight representing them. I did send, notification to the developer. And I think Marisol gave me a few other people associated with the development that I sent the invitation to. And doesn't look like we have anybody. I'm gonna let Kelly represent this one as well. And I do have a screen I want to share because it really helped me understand a couple of things when I was meeting with Emily about this development, but I'll wait until Kelly introduces it.
All righty, Kelly, lead us to the promised land, please.
Yeah, so this is a 43 lot subdivision. It's incomplete right now like the last one, but unlike the last one, we don't think there's going to be many, if any, changes. It's basically just the planning staff needs more data to be able to process it. So nothing really big enough or significant enough that would alter your decision making tonight. So the layout will remain pretty much what it is on the map that was presented to you. As far as land use planning is concerned, this is about as easy as it gets because there's no existing houses anywhere around it. It's old farmland. So let me bring up my screen here. Oh,
Where is this in relation to the pond that we were just discussing a little bit ago?
yeah, I'm gonna show you that in 1 second here.
Okay,
Bear with me.
I got so excited.
Yeah, here's Highway 26, toll gate in here where my cursor is. Here's the high school. We're gonna zoom up. The green property here, which is Sandy Bluff Park, that's just to the south of that in the yellow. That's where that pond is that you guys were discussing on the first item tonight.
Okay.
And then if you keep coming up here, you probably noticed that there was a pretty big subdivision that went in right here in the last couple of years called Sandy Woods Phase 1.
Yes.
And then on the other side of those power lines, the BPA lines there's another property that's owned by the same developer, and that's the second phase of the subdivision. And the reason why I was saying it's about as easy as it gets for land use is because their proposed access is going to go out to Kelso Road. And so their trips that are being generated from this development won't affect any existing houses in city limits. So you never see that in land use planning. So this is like a blessing for a planner. So very minimal impacts on existing housing. And then what I was going to show you is not only is there parks down here, Sandy Bluff Park and that pond and the things that Mike Walker was telling you earlier, but up in this area where my cursor is, there's let me see if I can zoom in.
So can you guys see my cursor right now?
Is it the hand? Yeah. Oh, now I see an arrow.
No, that,
Okay,
you won't be able to see it on screen.
yeah.
So what I was going to show you is this on this street, which is I think Salmonberry Street, there's a little pedestrian cut through that we made them do for this very reason, so that it can access the storm back here, but so also that in the future pedestrians can walk from this subdivision back on this path to this new subdivision that's being proposed.
Will there
So
be
that will be a condition.
Go ahead.
And then,
What's that?
I said,
I
go
was
ahead. I was about to ask if there will be a mate to this access point on the new subdivision.
Yeah, there would be right here where my cursor is.
Okay.
So we would require pedestrian access through here. Go ahead, Sarah.
and that also gives people in this new part, in the red part, this new proposed subdivision, pretty direct access to Bluff Park. Kelly, if you drop yours down a little bit. Back to where you can see Bluff Park.
Oh, so straight down the road.
Yeah. it's right.
Yeah, straight down, right?
Yeah,
And
so
so
we-
I just wanted you to see vicinity wise where Bluff Park was in relationship to that access.
So it'll be
so when we-
wires in approximately 3 blocks.
Yeah.
And
When we
then-
designed this, we made them dump that out right there
Nice.
where my cursor is. So it's a straight shot down to the park.
Nice.
The other thing we made them do here, I just wanted to point out, since you guys are also the trail board, is that not only will this access point be a requirement of the subdivision approval, but we also, in this little subdivision over here, Sandy Bluffs Annex 5, we made them put a trail in right through here. And that trail will be required to connect this trail. So you'll be able to go from this subdivision up into here or over to here. So all 3 of these subdivisions will be all connected by a trail network under the power line easement. The other cool thing with this subdivision, the one that's going in, which is also very unique, is that instead of having them, we got a lot of complaints because they didn't do a lot of tree retention down in this southern first phase. However, what we've determined is when you have a 150-year-old Doug fir on a 7,500 square foot lot, most of the time they die or they start causing property damage to the house.
Yeah.
So instead of requiring a lot of tree retention down here, we got pretty creative and we conditioned a tree tract, which is this little strip of land here.
Nice.
And so this will all be old growth trees through here with only one cut across for a road. So while it's not officially parkland, it will be a tree tract that people can enjoy, and there'll be some trails through there, I believe. So it'll kind of act as an open space for all these new people that are moving into this subdivision.
Yeah. Well, whether we build trails in there or not, I can assure you there will be trails on there.
Yeah. Can I share a screen real quick?
Here, let me get rid of this. I'm pretty much done with what I was going to say. There you go.
Let me see if I can do it now. So can you see that trail map?
Yes.
So this TO4, this is the proposed trail down along Kelso along that power line, which splits these 2 developments that Kelly was just showing. And this
Right.
is Bluff Park right here. So that's in the new proposed master plan.
We'll give them wonderful access.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All righty. Okay, Mary, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I like it.
All righty.
That's it. I like it.
Well, how about you? Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I was just seeing the trail overlay helped a lot. So thank you, Sarah.
All righty. Well, at this time, I'd like to ask myself, what would Hunter from the last presentation want to do?
You would, I
guess
know.
I'm inclined to support staff recommendations of accepting the fee in lieu. Is there any concerns for Will or Mary? Would either of you like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that we accept the fee in lieu of, along with the trails.
Outstanding. Is there a second?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Mary, to include the trails as part of that recommendation. So yes, second.
For the pedestrian access, is that what you're referring to?
Well, and yeah, whatever TO4.
Right, that's separate from this
Yeah, that's
proposal.
right. That's offsite, but the
Yeah,
one that's on site will be the trail access to it, the pathway.
Could you bring up that overlay again? Sorry to.
you want the trail one?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I missed something. Who's that good little guy?
I'm sure that's Hunter.
No, it's not.
Hunter O'Neill.
So where's the person?
That parcel, I think, is right here, isn't it, Kelly?
And so TO4 is not on that parcel? It's not?
No, it goes between those two developments,
Okay.
right, along the power line, but it's not part of this proposed development.
Right. Well, actually, it's TO5, I think, is the one that goes under the power line. And
You're right. Yeah,
Unless it
thank
takes a
you.
45-degree turn.
Right.
Yeah.
It kind of goes like this. So this is the Kelso
the
power line, and
TO4
then,
label, I think, is what's sitting on the site.
yeah, you're
So
right.
that doesn't have to be a
This is-
call out, even though it's bordering the property?
No, what I think is the call out is that Mary pointed out is the access, pedestrian access easement to get to that. Is that correct, Mary?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just from a staff level perspective, when I bring this before Planning Commission in probably October, it would be nice to include in your recommendation, as already mentioned by Will and Mary, that a fee in lieu, but also the trails, because then it gives staff some additional support and requiring that in our recommendation. So
Excellent.
I really like.
Mary included that in her motion. So with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? And we have another O'Neill there. Good to see you.
3 of them.
All righty. Hey, I guess that concludes our development business for tonight, unless there's something else, Kelly, that you want to talk about?
No, I mean, I'd be happy to come back in the future once you guys are up to full strength with 6 or 7 people. And if you guys have questions about how development works or about how some of the legal interpretations work about how we can require land. However, I will say, I'll just plug it, that hopefully a lot of that will be changing in the next few months with our new master plan adoption and new code adoptions. So hopefully we'll have more teeth to be able to make those requirements.
Kelly, I do want to say how invaluable your input was tonight. We very much appreciate it. We know that you're busy. We know you got a lot of meetings. We know that you got some family responsibilities there. We can all relate to that, I think, but thank you so much. Sarah does a wonderful job, but we always like to see your smiling face out here too.
My pleasure.
I am very happy to see his smiling face as well.
Thanks, Kelly.
Up all the way around.
Take care and have a wonderful evening, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.
With
Bye,
that,
young O'Neill.
that concludes our new business for the evening.
Yeah.
I don't see anything listed under old business, although I do want to acknowledge, Sarah, do you have any old business you need to add in here?
I don't tonight.
Okay. How about staff updates? Anything?
No, the only thing I wanted to just add a little bit to Kelly's comments there at the end, that along with the Parks Master Plan adoption process, we are also having a variety of eyes on our code and making the changes that we need so that some of these gray areas that seem to be interpreted differently depending on which lawyer is looking at it will be more clear, and will give you as a Parks Board, as Don said, more teeth, or Kelly said more teeth, I'm not sure, to realize, you know, what the intent of that code is and what the vision is for the master plan. So really looking forward to that. And I'm sure we'll have more updates for you.
Super, thank you. The only last thing I have is two things. First, we do have 2 vacancies on our board. If we know anybody that has any interest, it'd be wonderful to get some recommendations there. And then secondly, we don't want to lose sight, we're still short a vice chair. So we need to address that issue at some point in time. So with that, that's all I have. Is Will or Mary, anything for the good of the order? No?
No, I don't have anything to add.
All righty. Well, thank you both, and Sarah also, for
You,
hanging
Don?
out with us this evening. I personally had a good time. I hope.
I learned a lot.
Always, often educational, isn't it? So
Yes.
anyway, with that, go enjoy the rest of your evenings, and we will catch you on the flip flop, as they say.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
Okay. Good night.